Hello, this is Julia from Just One More Card, and today I have another card for you as a member of the design team for the Color Me challenge blog. And it's a monochromatic challenge this week. This means I'm only going to use one color, and I'm also only going to use dies for this card. I'm going to use frame dies, I'm going to use a vert die, and then I'm going to use the butterfly dies. Simply because I do not have any ink color that matches the challenge color, but I do have the pattern paper from Stampin' Up. So here's my card base. It's a regular A2 sized card base, and I'm going to use the Femme Frames by Mama Elephant. I love this die set, it's just amazing. And I'm gonna die cut two pieces. One will be the bottom layer and one will go on top, as you can see me lay out here. So I'm going to use the scalloped border, which is the bigger one of the two, and I'm going to die cut my bottom part of the layers from the, I think the color is called Calypso Coral something, from this pattern paper. I will die cut this. You can see it here. You get a really beautiful scalloped edge all around, and it's a rather big piece. That means if you put it on the front of your card, you only have a little bit of space left. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to take the smaller one of the dies, and I'm just using a piece of, leftover white cardstock, and I'm going to cut my second panel from there. Always adhering it with masking tape so it won't shift in my Sizzix. And now I have the second panel ready. I'm just going to zoom in here for a second so you can see what happens. So this goes on top of the pattern paper, and you can see this beautiful stitched border that you get from the die. So the die actually creates the border. It cuts and it creates the border. So it's really beautiful. Alright, so this is how we're going to stack this. And now the butterfly comes into play, because what I want to do, I want to create a window in the white card that lets me peek through to the pattern paper. So the pattern paper is more strongly presented in the card. It's the challenge color after all. So I'm just adhering the butterfly first, die cutting it out. I'm going to save this piece for later because you never know when you might need it. And now I'm going to take the body of the butterfly and do the same thing again. Basically, I'm running it through the die cut machine twice to have the complete butterfly cut from my front panel from this white cardstock. And it's a little bit sturdier white cardstock, because if you use something too flimsy, it's gonna get complicated when you do stuff like this. So this is how it looks when it's done. I hope you get the idea. So this goes on top of the pattern paper. The pattern paper goes on top of the card, and I've decided to flush mount the pattern paper to not give it any dimension, because I'm going to 3D mount the front panel. So I'm just lining this up here, making sure I have the borders straight, because the last thing you want to do is to have this crooked at this point. It's just a waste of paper. I mean, you can always start over, but I'm always so sorry about the paper. So now I'm thinking of adhering this right away, but then I remembered, I have to put the sentiment on there as well. So I'm using the small hello die from Simon Says Stamp. Oops. From Simon Says Stamp. And what I'm going to do is I'm gonna cut it 4 times. 3 times from white cardstock, 1 time from the pattern paper, and then I'm gonna glue those pieces on top of each other to get a very dimensional sentiment. And I have to be very careful when I take this out, because I did not use a shim with this relatively intricate die. So the problem is that it didn't cut 100%. So I have to be very careful, and you can see my very professional tool. It was like a cork from a wine bottle and a needle that I put together. Here you can see my 4 die cuts. What I'm going to do now is just to take some glue and glue these on top of each other. Yeah, so it will be a more dimensional die cut. I don't have multimedia matte. This is what I use, and I think it's doing basically the same, this glue and seal, because once it dries matte, so you won't really see it on your card. I always dip a little, because I only have a thick brush. I always dip a little bit of it onto a piece of scratch paper, and then simply use my fingers to apply it to wherever it needs to go. That seems to be the easiest and fastest way to do this. And right now the goal is simply to get this all glued together, so there's no rhyme or reason to it. after I've done this, I realized that I did not want to go the pattern paper to go as the last layer on the sentiment. I actually considered just using the white because the white looks pretty nice as well. And then I realized I could use the pattern paper on the bottom and slightly offset the white. So you get like a shadow effect. So you see there's something underneath. The white's not completely, you know, white on white. So I was playing around with this a little bit, looking at it, you know, cocking my head to the side, thinking, and I was like, I like this. This is how I'm going to do it. So I was just thinking like about what the easiest way would be, and what I'm going to do is I'm just going to glue the pattern paper directly onto the white cardstock. And the reason for that is that instead of trying to line up the white like sturdier sentiment piece that I now have with the pattern paper before putting it on the card base, so that would be like so much work, and it wouldn't really, you know, wouldn't be really a lot of fun. So by adhering the pattern paper on the front panel first, it's basically fixed. It doesn't move around, and I'm just being a little bit careful here, and I wanted to rub over it, but then I remembered I shouldn't be doing this because I could hurt the die cut, so I'm just using some scratch paper to press it down. And now I have this much sturdier piece of paper, you know, because it's basically 3 layers of cardstock on top of each other, which I can then move around and figure out how exactly I want to do this, how much I want it to show. So that was my plan. Afterwards, it did not look quite as my plan, but you know, you have to be flexible as a crafter, and you can always claim that's exactly what you wanted it to look like, right? Please tell me I'm not the only one doing this. So so I'm again putting the glue, which is a little bit off screen, I'm sorry for that, onto the die cut, the sentiment that I created here. You could almost call it an embellishment because it has so much dimension. And then I'm carefully trying to align it, and I'm looking at the L's right now, trying to make sure that the L's have the degree of, I'll call it shadow, that I want, and then I'm just going to flip over the loop on the H. You can see me fiddling with it, and since it's liquid glue, you have a little bit of fiddle time, so it's not completely fixed as if you would use a tape runner or something. So you have a little bit of wiggle room, and you can make it so it's good. And I'm so much happier with the choice that I made. So I like this so much better than having the pattern paper on top. So yay for me! I improvised. I did good. Yay! Okay, so this will go on top of this, and now I'm going to use my foam tape, of which I have so much because a colleague was nice enough to bring me some from the US. It's very expensive here in Germany. So just putting on enough foam tape on the back to raise it up a little bit. And then I'm trying to line it up, because after all the work I've put into this, the last thing I want is uneven borders. You know, like if you have, sometimes it happens that you have a very white border on one side and like a very slim border on the other side, and it's like, oh, I put all this work into it. So you could call it done at this point. It's basically okay. There's no reason to fiddle with it, but of course I can't leave it alone. So I'm grabbing my Wink of Stella and applying just one coat of Wink of Stella over the sentiment. I could have used Wink of Stella, then gone in with what's like the clear glue, I forgot what it's called, but instead I opted to pick up some sequins, again dipping them into my glue, which dries matte, and putting on some sequins onto the card to give it some, you know, more elegance and more shine. I know I used 4. Usually I would use uneven numbers, but I just didn't know where to put the 5th, so that's why I'm using 4, which is, you know, not an uneven number. But hey, it's intended to be this way, right? So that's the card for today. All done, all die cutting, no stamping. I hope you've enjoyed this. Thank you so much for watching. Join us over at the challenge, and please visit me at my blog. Thank you. Bye.